Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Dynasty After Dark. I'm your host, Calvin Timms. You can find me over on Twitter at TDC_Calvin or the Dynasty After Dark YouTube channel. Thank you guys for joining me today for the Not My Guys episode of Dynasty and for 2022 and beyond. And if you missed it the last couple of days, I have put out my Guys episodes for each position. I had 2 for every position, guys that I really believe in going into this year and the future, who I want you to be able to jump on board with before it's too late. And today, the whole purpose of the Not My Guys episode is to sell my case on a few guys that are going pretty highly in fantasy football in terms of their startup ADP and why you should be out on them for this year and the future. And I'm going to try and sell you on all these guys. So today I'm going to be starting with the quarterback position. But before I do, if you don't mind, wherever you're listening to the podcast, please leave a 5-star review or thumbs up or like, comment, subscribe, whatever it is for the video, wherever you're listening to it. I know there's some audio only guys that you can't really you can't comment on it. So if you could just leave a positive review for the podcast, I'd really appreciate it. Tell the podcast to one of your friends just to grow the listener base for it. Just want to get this out to more people. And also if you missed it on Twitter, join the Let's Talk Sports YouTube channel as well. So I'm going to be putting some content out there. You can find all of this content on their channel as well. And I'm excited to be joining them for some content in the future. So before we get any further, I wanted to just talk about who my player is today, and this one will be a spicy player. It's someone that is very highly touted in the Dynasty community right now, and it's someone that is very popular out there in the Dynasty community. So this player, without any further ado, is going to be Joe Burrow with the Cincinnati Bengals. And Joe Burrow is currently going off the board as the tight end number 6 in Dynasty startups. And to me, that is absolutely insane. So I'm going to give you a little bit of advanced metrics. And these rankings are all based on the Player Profiler website. You know, it's by Dynasty Mansion. Not a big fan of the person, but he does put out a pretty quality product, so got to give him some props for that. And yeah, Joe Burrow finished as the quarterback number 8 last year in 2021. And yeah, I just do not see how you can justify quarterback number 6 for him. And when you look at these startup rankings, for the top tier quarterbacks, the biggest thing that you have to take into account is the rushing upside. That's what makes these guys game breakers. If you're not going to have a good high rushing floor, you better be one of the most efficient passers in the NFL year on year. And I don't know if that's what we're going to be able to expect from Joe Burrow going forward, because if you look at it, and just to start off, the rushing attempts for last year was pitiful. He had 40 total carries on the season, 118 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns. He averaged 7.4 rushing yards per game. 7.4. That is not going to do it for fantasy football to be a top tier Dynasty tight end. All the other guys up there have a pretty high rushing floor, and we're just hoping that they can be as efficient in the passing game. So if you're not going to do that, and I don't believe that Joe Burrow is going to be someone that is going to be utilized more in the rushing going forward, then you better have enough in the passing game to offset that. So real quick on the Cincinnati Bengals, before we get into Joe Burrow's specific stats, some of the good that they've done this offseason. Right now, per PFF, they are ranked as the number 8 offensive line in the NFL going into this season. They invested heavily on the offensive line this year. Now, everyone is expecting that just means that the offense is going to get better, and it will. I do believe that their offense is going to get better, but they have a pretty good defense. It's about number 12 or 13 on PFF rankings right now, and it's kind of changing with some of the injuries and things like that, but the last rankings that I saw had them at number 12 overall, so they have a very good defense. And when you look at that offensive line, number 8 overall, they want to run the ball more. Now, last year, if you look at their passing percentage per game, basically, the Cincinnati Bengals were 13th in the league with 59.5%. they don't want to be that high in the passing percentage. They want to be closer to 55 to 45. If they were at 55%, that would put them down at around 24, 25 in the NFL. And if you up their rushing totals, that would put them, whatever that is, the 45%, 46% there, which would be around, number 18 or so, give or take. My math is not the greatest on the fly, but it put them around the number 18th overall rushing team. Now, if you look at their rushing attempts per game and their passing attempts per game, last year they were number 22 in rush attempts per game and number 20 in passing attempts per game. I don't see them being good enough to really up either one of those numbers. Now, the more you have the ball, of course, the more plays you get to run on the offense per game. Of course, that kind of makes sense there. But I don't think that their defense is going to be able to shut people down enough that they're going to see a massive uptick in plays per game. So take that out of it. And if you're just looking at their averages per last season, 25 rushing attempts per game and, 33 passing attempts. Let's say that gets closer to 28 and 30, just 3 plays per game. That's a pretty massive swing. 28 rushing attempts put them at number 11 in the NFL, whereas the passing volume would drop them even further down to number 29th in the league. And that's what I believe, based on what we saw in the Super Bowl run, that they want to do with this team, especially with the investments that they made in the offensive line. So if they're going to be trying to save Joe Burrow a little bit more, which is what everything they've done this offseason kind of says to me personally, what does that mean for his passing production? So let's take a look at Joe Burrow specifically and his passing efficiency for the 2021 season. So last year, he ranked number 15th out of all quarterbacks per player profile with 520 passing attempts. He was number 12 in deep ball attempts, which is pretty good. Number 17 in red zone attempts. But mysteriously, he was number 8 in passing touchdowns. So he was number 6 in passing yards. What it tells me is that a lot of their scores came from out of the red zone, which is pretty obvious. Jamar Chase was a deadly weapon. You look at the efficiency rating, he had a 70% completion percentage last season, which is really high amongst all the quarterbacks. If you look at the yards per attempt, number 1, they were throwing the ball down the field more than all the other quarterbacks and all the other teams. He actually ranked number 2 in true completion percentage per player profiler. Now, that is an extremely efficient number. Can he continue that for the rest of his career? I don't believe so. We've seen multiple times where quarterbacks have one outlying season in terms of completion percentage, and then it falls off a cliff the next year because that's just a very hard number to sustain. The only person that was really able to sustain 70% or higher for a long period of time was Drew Brees when he was older and he was kind of doing more closer to the line of scrimmage attempts. 75% while being the number 1 in yards per attempt is not sustainable. That is the number 1 red flag for me with Joe Burrow. So if he's not going to be able to complete or continue that completion percentage, and that goes down dramatically, his passing yards is going to take a big dip. His touchdowns is going to probably make a big dip. Maybe Jamar Chase kind of offsets that, but the interceptable passes will probably go up. It just spells disaster for fantasy football specifically. Now, I think that Joe Burrow can still be a very, very good quarterback. I'm not worried about that whatsoever, but if we're going to see already a downtick in passing attempts based on everything that I believe that they have really done this offseason to, up their rushing attempts and decrease their passing attempts, not need to rely on Joe Burrow as much. That's already going to have an impact on the passing attempts, the passing yards, the touchdowns, all of that, right? But then you also take into account that the unsustainable completion percentage cannot continue, that's going to have a double dip effect. So I think that Joe Burrow had an amazing season last year. To finish quarterback 8 with no rushing upside is incredible, but there's no world where he should be even in the top 10 right now, top 12. And he's going as the quarterback number 6 overall. So if it was me personally, I would be looking to sell Joe Burrow in every single league that I had him in. I would take whatever I could get for him. And I get it. He's 25 years old, just went to the Super Bowl. But those passing efficiency numbers that he put up last year are just not sustainable, and I think that you're going to get left holding the bag if you don't sell out on Joe Burrow, especially with, look what's going on right now. The guy had an appendix burst this offseason. He hasn't been at training camp for the last 3 weeks because he's been recovering from appendicitis. I've seen what that can do to guys. You lose a lot of weight because you cannot eat. You can't do anything. You can't work out. It's going to take him a couple weeks to even get back to relevance this season, let alone the future. I have a lot of red flags around Joe Burrow. Again, I know that he's a community darling. Quarterback number 6, you don't get there for no reason, but yeah, I would just take the money and run if it was me with Joe Burrow. So hopefully I was able to sell you on that, kind of give you my efficient reading on why I would be concerned about Joe Burrow for 2022 and beyond. I just think that without the rushing upside, he has no business being in the top 12. So take what you can get for him while he's this high in rating, and just get out while you can. So that's my not my guy for the quarterback position. Let me know your thoughts over on Twitter, over on YouTube. I appreciate you guys for listening. Have a good night.